Welcome back to the Dopesick Show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer, and this is Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the dumb stuff I did to get put in prison. I've also got quite a few stories about the crazy stuff that happened when I was actually in prison, and God forbid you end up in prison. You want to make some of the same mistakes I made. This story sucks because it shows the crazy, how messed up Petersburg is, how their whole system is, how they're just backwards as can be. So, first off, this is part 2 to the story that I just did. You know, Crazy Joe versus Sling Blade was in the thumbnail. Old Bull versus Young Buck, I think, was the title. So, when I first got back to the low security from the medium security, they put me in Richmond Hall. They often put you there to start out until a bed opens in your building because it's a giant fortress of a building. Got lucky. Got a 2-man room in a different part, but they're what they call parking lots, which are like 50-man dorm areas. A couple of them. It's got like 350 people, 3 floors and a basement. It's a huge building. And the same day, actually it would have had to be like a day or two after I got there. 2 people showed up in the building. One person was Sling Blade. Now, I'd had an issue with him years back, and I came out on top in that one. But you never know when somebody's going to want to get their revenge or whatever. So I said hello to him politely, and it seemed all good. Then I saw Crazy Joe, and that's when I'd learned that they'd gotten in like the most epic fight ever. So during the time after that happened, first off, these 2 guys just got in a hellacious fight. They got in a 15-minute bloodbath fight that went, like, it spanned the course of probably 40 or 50 feet. Like, they moved all over the building, beating each other up. And you're going to release them in the same, to the same building. You're not going to put them in separate buildings. You're going to put them in the same building, in a building that is so big with so many passages, so many corridors, and 0 cameras, I might add. Something bad could happen. Now, it didn't. But that's just stupid. I think anybody can agree with that. You could scream as loud as you want from probably 20 different places in Richmond Hall, and the CO could not hear you in their office if you screamed as loud as you could, and if they were listening as hard as they couldn't hear you. Too many doors, too many hallways, too many stairwells. I mean, 3 floors in a basement. How are they going to hear you? But anyway, so I talked to Crazy Joe, and he was asking me. He tried to shoot a double leg takedown on a Sling Blade, and when it wasn't working, Sling Blade had a good sprawl. He sprawled on me when I shot a double leg. Kind of did like a sit-out roll through, and I ended up in top position. But see, Joe didn't know all that. So when he aborted his double leg takedown, where he's got his head against, and he sprawled, he just popped up like this. And then Sling Blade said, boop, boop, and popped him hard from what I heard. Now, when he came in, when he aborted, instead of just popping up to be hit, we drilled it a few times, but basically what he should have done was when he aborted it, he take his grips, put them here, sink down, and then pop back up once he's at a safe distance away. He just popped up, ta-da, whack-a-mole, biff, pop him right in the head. So we drilled that. So when it abort, from the grips, come up top, sink low, pop up, come back, get going. We drilled that a good bit. He was one of those people that, he was very open to hear anything you had to teach him if you knew what you were talking about. But he was going to see if it would work. Got him in the judo pin, Kesagatami, which I hadn't trained judo at that point, but they taught it at the Kempo Karate Gym. And it's an incredible pin. It's called a scarf hold, too, in wrestling. It's a head and arm pin, basically. And I remember he tried to squeeze. You can get a lock around it from the bottom. You can grab around their waist, but basically one head's around the arm. You're sitting on your butt, and you got one of their arms trapped. And he tried to squeeze my ribs as hard as he could, trying to figure something out to where he could do something to where I was going to let go. And after about 30 seconds, as in shape as he was, You know, you can gas yourself out real quick wrestling. So, you know, we end up training a good bit in there. And there's this little guy, Petey. He was a boxer. They'd have a couple guys in there wrap their hands with ace bandages, put in mouthpieces and stuff. I'd done the drug program already. I was getting close to go home. You get a black eye, they're going to put you in the shoe and put you in solitary. You might end up getting more time. But anyway, this ain't going to be too long of a video. The main point of this video, he got in this vicious fight. He got put in prison in the first place for a crime that was violent. It was necessary, you know, but it was unfortunate. Basically, you know, in the other video I talked about it, but it was violent crime which jacks your points up. He was at a serious medium. He ended up at Petersburg low. He's from North Carolina. Now, this vicious fight should have jacked his points up. If anything, this fight is what should have jacked his points up and got him put at the medium security. He got let back out to the low security. And while he was still in Richmond Hall, he made a phone call. He made a phone call for somebody. You can't use someone else's phone. It's a write-up. It's a shot. You can get punishments for that. I can make a phone call to your wife, to your girlfriend, and I can tell her, listen, they wanted me to tell you this, and that. That is acceptable. He did that for somebody. And the guy said, hey, tell her this, and that too. And she could hear him because the guy was hollering. And he said, well, I guess you heard that. Technically, the guy's voice could be heard on the phone, even though the guy couldn't hear them back. It was a petty BS write-up by this douchebag who looked like, I mean, he had no eyebrows, this CO. You can't trust somebody with no eyebrows. I mean, if he was in a pool with your kids, you'd tell him, get out, you might catch what this guy's got. I mean, he looked sickly. Like, think how it's super CO, what he wanted to be. He shouldn't have got a write-up for that. Long story short, somehow, he gets in this epic fight. He gets to go back to the low. They barely raise his points up. See, the points to be at a low security are 12 to, it's like either, I think it's just 12 to 15. 12 to 15. And then 16 to 23 is a medium. Then 24 and up's a USP, if I remember correctly. So, it only raised his points up like 2 or something for this ridiculous fight. But somehow, this cluster screw up of a prison upped his points from like 15 to like 21, 22 points. And he got sent to the medium security for a 300 series shot, which isn't even serious. It's something typically they take your computer away, take your phone away for 30 days. But somehow, this screw up of a prison jumped his points up to 20. So not only does that mean, you know, he's not going to be back at the low, but he'll likely never ever make it back to a low. Not only that, but he has to go to Petersburg medium. He has to go next door. I made that mistake too, had to go there. It's a freak show of a prison. So I talked to him about it, and it sucked, but yeah, he ended up having to go next door to the medium because of that stupid phone. And see, it all depends who's working and who's listening to the phone. Some people love listening to it. They love listening to people talk dirty to their girl. They love hearing the drama, the gossip. Some of the women guards in particular, I overheard them talking about it. You know, that's just petty because you're playing with people's lives. You're going to be listening to their calls and having conversations with other guards about it. I mean, that ain't right. I mean, come on. That's, you know, get a life. You know what I mean? Stupid. Now, I do have other stories about the phone getting in people in major trouble, which I will tell in the future. This one just particularly bothered me because he got in a vicious fight, and if anything, that should have been what sent him to the media. That would have made sense. I'd have been okay with that because that makes sense. That's typical. But for him to be allowed to go back to the low, think, cool, I'm getting another chance. And to do a favor for this guy, he's using his own phone minutes, his own money to call this guy's girlfriend so she's not worried about him. I believe he'd just gotten out of the hole too. And to get punished by getting his points jacked, it's so wrong on so many levels. Like, there's just like, got this sense of right and wrong with certain things. And this is so messed up. And it didn't get remedied. It did not get fixed. Ended up getting stuck there at the medium, as far as I heard, for years after from people. I believe that's where he is now, probably. If he isn't out, he might be out by now. It's been a good bit. But anyway, the other stories I have about people, something that you would typically see, it's pretty wild. When something happens, like a big gang brawl on the yard, and people cover their faces, then they go to a blind spot, take the covering off, run off. If they can't figure out who did what, or somebody gets poked up, they don't know who did it. There are cameras everywhere, but there are blind spots. There are a good many blind spots. People will cover their face, poke them up, run to the blind spots. The leather shop. The leather shop has 30, 40 people in it at any given time. Whenever the poor boy Marcos, whenever he was getting assaulted by his roommate, and the Pisces found out about it, they stuck 30 people on the one guy. That was the most vicious beating I've seen in my life. I've never seen somebody's face go from normal to a basketball within under a minute. Under 60 seconds, this guy's face was unrecognizable. Half his teeth were gone. Most of his ribs were cracked. Nose broke. They had to land a helicopter on the soccer field to air vac him out. But anyway, when that happened, half the people had their faces covered. They ran in the leather shop, uncovered their faces, hung out in there like nothing was going on. Half the people didn't get caught. Better than half the people didn't get caught. You know. But anyway, when stuff like that happens, people will get put in the hole for investigation. Everybody of a gang sometimes will get put in the shoe. You're only allowed one phone call. When you first get, it's kind of like, okay, if you were to go to jail today, they allow you one phone call, correct? Well, it's the same thing in prison. It's like going to jail in the prison. If you go to the shoe in prison, they give you one phone call when you first get there. Better hope somebody picks up. It's on this phone with wheels that they give you through the bean hole that the tray goes through. And they got this long cord. You get one phone call. Then once a month, on a random day, for no rhyme or reason, they'll bring the phone around and you get a phone call. I would accept new roommates because upon accepting a new roommate, the new roommate got a phone call. As soon as they got done, I'd get a phone call too. I took a couple people nuttier than a squirrel turd as roommates. But anyhow, they will bring the phone out when they typically wouldn't bring it out. They'll let everybody on the tier make a phone call. These people will tell their wives, girlfriends, family. They'll gossip about what just happened while they're in the hole. And that's how they get people. Certain things, certain conversations about other things. Murders and everything in between, they have gotten over the phones. They've gotten people trying to get pictures. Chomo type stuff over the phone. Sent in. Having pictures sent in certain like disguised ways. There's been every type of thing that the phone has caught. Now there are some good things in that, in them catching certain things. But that phone, there are certain trick ups with it. But anyway, if you like the video, press the like button. If not, it's 13 minutes and 2 seconds of your life, which you'll never get back. I hoped you did though. It just really upset me though with this because he didn't deserve to go to a medium over a phone call after he'd been let back out to the low and thinking his life is going to be okay. That is like earth-shattering type stuff to somebody that's in prison, to get your points jacked up that high to where you know you can't get back down, and especially to be stuck at Petersburg Medium. It's a freak show of a place, and because he's from North Carolina, it's close to home. So even though he had nothing wrong with him, nothing at all wrong with his charge, anything like that, he's stuck at this freak show of a prison. So that's it.